Hey guys, it's Jess and Seb with another video, and in today's video we're talking about
the school life in Singapore and
Germany!
So we thought it would be pretty fun to talk about the differences between Singapore and Germany, and specifically regarding school life and our journey with the school system, because for each of us, school takes up a huge part of our life from age 6 to 18. And there's quite some similarities and differences. So today we're going to talk all about schools.
So without further ado, shall we dig into the general gist of it? What does the school system look like?
So, editing Jess and Seb here, we tried explaining the overall school system to you guys, but it took us a long 15 minutes. And we are sure you don't want to hear us blabber and go on about the boring old school system. So we're here now to try to concisely explain the two different systems to you within 4 minutes or so, also with the help of visuals. But if you're not interested in knowing how the different school systems are like, feel free to skip on to the next segment of this video. So, Seb, what is the school system in Germany like?
On paper, the school system is pretty straightforward. It is separated into 4 categories: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary education. But traversing the school system can be tricky, as there is no centralized school system, which means each of the 16 states of Germany can decide for themselves. It all starts during primary school, where you spend 4 years, in most states, some 6 years, and during which the foundation of your journey is laid. After you graduate elementary school, you can usually choose between 3 different types of secondary education schools: Hauptschule, Realschule, or Gymnasium. It all depends on your grades, and they have thus different entry barriers. For students that do not perform too well in elementary school, they will enter the practice-oriented Hauptschule, which is also considered the lowest tier of secondary school that ends with the 9th grade around age 15. For those that perform better, they enter the Realschule, which ends after grade 10 with the Realschulabschluss, or Mittlere Reife as it's also called, and is usually a mix between theoretical and practical teachings. But not every state has a Hauptschule anymore, so sometimes there is a mix between Realschule and Hauptschule, which is called Gesamtschule or Mittelschule. Lastly, if you excel in elementary school, you can attend the Gymnasium, which prepares students for universities, and that is why there are more subjects and there is more of a focus on the STEM category. It is absolutely possible to climb up the school system across the different secondary schools, but there is also the possibility to drop down the tiers if your performance is below a certain required minimum. To make things even more complicated, there are a lot of other types of schools that can help you reach the same level as Abitur, which is the graduation from Gymnasium. But explaining those would take too much time. If you're interested in learning more about the tertiary and quaternary education system in Germany, we can make a quick video about that topic and leave some relevant links in the description below. But that's it for the German school system. Jess, what about Singapore?
In Singapore, our school system is pretty much the same as the UK, since we're a British colony. We do have early stage education at kindergartens too. However, we spend 6 years in primary school instead of 4 in Germany. And from there, at the age of 12, we are split into different tiers of secondary schools depending on our grades. The students with the good grades will go to the express stream, and the students with less exemplary grades will be admitted to the normal academic and normal tech streams. Students in normal tech are more focused on technical subjects like design and technology. This was the school system that I went through. However, what I know is that this is changing and the government is implementing a new approach in the coming years. With that being said, once students are done with their secondary schools, they then have to decide if they would like to move on to a junior college or a polytechnic. A junior college prepares you for the GCE levels and for entry to universities. As for polytechnics, they are usually more focused on real-world applications. You can study to be an engineer, to be a marketer, a cook, etc. Once you are done with Polytechnic, you graduate with a diploma, which means you can already start working, but there are a minority of Polytechnic students who then also move to universities to further their studies. Universities in Singapore are not so complicated. There are public and private universities, and most students stop at a bachelor's degree and start working immediately. A huge majority do not continue for postgraduate studies after their bachelor's, but perhaps only consider the option if their employer offers to sponsor their further studies at a later stage of their professional career. But that is basically the two different school systems, and the more or less dry part of this video is over, and on to the exciting parts with some personal experiences and other topics around uniforms, school life, and tuition classes. Back to the video.
That's a lot. A lot of talking, a lot of explaining. Not sure if this video is still fun to follow, but if you're still with us, we thank you very much. You can now leave a like, a comment, and a subscribe for us, because from here on out, it's rather our personal stories.
Yes.
I would like to begin
Okay.
and just share a little bit about my story. So I went as necessary. I went to kindergarten, I went to elementary school. From there on, I went to the gymnasium, but because I was lazy at the time, I failed to pass 9th grade at the gymnasium, and from there on I then had to drop down basically into the Realschule.
Okay.
But because I felt, because of Latin, which was a language not offered at the Realschule, in terms of passing, I would have passed the 9th grade at the Realschule. And since they're graduating in 10th grade, I would have needed to pick up French
From
scratch in 1 year and write like my final exams there. So for me, that wasn't an option. I could have then dropped down all the way to the Hauptschule, but that wasn't something I really wanted to do because I was much older than the other kids and I felt
weird.
Yeah. So I was then looking at the other category, which I said before. I went to an economic school for 2 years, got my 10th grade diploma, so to say, passed that. From then on, I went to a specialized economic school, which was called Fachoberschule, which got me to the level of a 12th grade gymnasium. So with that, I reached a level of knowledge. I could then go on to Hochschulen, which is tertiary education, but not universities.
Okay, so there's a difference.
So there's a difference. Then I attempted to do the 13th grade, which would get me the allowance to go to
the Hochschule,
the university, but I failed because I was lazy. And then I was really out of patience with studying and learning. And then I just said, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna go work. So I worked for a few years. I got an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And now I'm back at a Hochschule. I'm studying currently IT management, and I'm gonna be done soon.
Yay.
So that is my personal roller coaster ride through the German education system.
For me, similarly, I went to the kindergarten first, K1, K2, then went on to my primary school for 6 years, then went to the secondary school for another 4 years, took my GCE O-levels, and then decided that I cannot decide what I want to do with my life, so I went on to junior college to continue to study for another 2 years, then took my GCE A-levels, and then went to university. So it was pretty straightforward. Not as confusing as yours.
Not as confusing as mine, no. So next up, we're going to talk about everything around the school system and the differences there.
Yeah. And I think to start off, maybe we can start talking about uniforms, because in Singapore, we wear uniforms for the most of our education, school life. And in Germany, I think it's completely different. Have you ever worn a uniform to school?
Not once in my life worn a school uniform.
In Singapore, we had to wear uniforms from like kindergarten all the way until junior college. So from the age of 5 until you are 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I really liked it because I did not have to rack my brains about what to wear every single morning. I just put on the same uniform and I went to school. Simple, straightforward, and I liked it a lot. And I can show you some pictures about my school uniform. This is my secondary school uniform. And oh my god, this is horrible. But we have a extremely bright green pinafore. If you know what a pinafore is, it's like a apron dress that you wear over like a button-down shirt. And you have a belt over here. So the cool kids, we always try to like, hang the belt really low, and it was horrible. I don't know why I did that. And then this is my junior college uniform, which I think it's much nicer. It's just a simple blue shirt and
blue, yeah,
skirt. So that was really nice. Oh, and this is, so I was in a symphony band back in secondary school, and this was actually the uniform that we would wear whenever we were performing. So we had this pretty cute like green hat with like some, I don't know, lace gold thing hanging down
from the side
with like a red tie. Yeah, it was really funny to have these uniforms.
But touching on that subject is very interesting as well, because I think this is also somewhat where the school systems differ.
Yeah.
It's the offering of activities outside of school. So in Germany, school ends at a certain time. So in elementary school, it ends around lunchtime.
So early.
Very early, especially in first and second grade, even before lunchtime. And then you can, but you don't have to attend like afternoon classes. It's not really classes, it's what we call Hort or Betreuung, where the children are taken care of by someone with a special education, and they help them do homework, and after that they play with other kids in the group. It's not the same as school, but it's like school related in the afternoon. But it's not sports or anything, it's just more studying groups, for example. I didn't attend those, so I went home to my grandma, did my homework there, and then I was free to do whatever I wanted to do.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. And I know that the schools offer stuff like you can be part of a band, and you can be part of that of like a
like soccer club.
Not really. The soccer clubs are all outside of school.
Okay.
So not many schools I know have a soccer club. And that means usually all the sporty activity and being part of a team usually was done outside of school.
I find it so surprising because whenever we take a walk during lunch, we would see kids like, getting off from school, going home immediately. But that was never the case in Singapore. We always had something called co-curricular activities. It is mandatory for you to have at least one curricular activity. For example, you can do arts. Like for me, I was in a symphony band. You can do choir, you can do drama, you dance, and then there's like sports as well, basketball, volleyball, netball, whatever you can think of it. And these usually take up a lot of your school time as well. So if you were to end school, let's say at 12 or 1, you have lunch, and then your co-curricular activity starts from 2 or 3, and then it can stretch all the way until 6. So that was the case for me, is that I had symphony band for like, I think 2 times a week during the weekdays from 3 to 6. And then because the symphony band in my school was really prestigious, we even had to return to school on a Saturday from 8 to 4 to practice.
No, never any school on Saturday, no school on Sunday over here.
I guess the school system is just trying to balance the academic part and the non-academic part. By making it mandatory that you have at least one co-curricular activity. I don't know if it has changed over the years. I mean, I've graduated school for a long time now. But in addition to that, a lot of the Asians also have tuition classes. And tuition is a big part of, sadly, Asian kids' life. So for me, I had tuition classes all the way until I was at junior college, like at 18. Even on Saturday and Sundays, I would have to go to tuition classes. Maybe because I'm not the brightest apple in the group, so I had to do a lot of tuition extra classes, and that would go on until like 9 at night on Saturday. On Sunday, I spent like 3 hours at the tuition centers just to study and get better.
It's similar for us. I mean, you can attend those are not mandatory, But I also received, as we call it, Nachhilfe, is like tuition.
Tuition.
It sometimes is offered by the school itself, so a student from a higher grade just spends an hour or two with you, and then you get to learn on the subject that you're struggling with. Sometimes it's paid even, so you get an outsider in, and sometimes you even become part of study groups and something like that.
Tuition is a huge part of any Asian kid's life, sadly.
And that, I think, leads to one of the big differences in between growing up in Germany and growing up in Singapore. In Germany, I have the feeling that we are taught to be independent and kind of value work-life balance from an early stage onwards.
Study-life balance.
Yeah, at that time it's study and life balance.
And I think in Asia or maybe in Singapore, the pressure to do well in school is extremely high. That's why you have all of these extra classes that you have to take. You have to learn so many new skills. I mean, at primary school, I was learning abacus, you know, like the beats. And then, yeah, I went to school on Saturday for 2 hours just to learn abacus. I mean, can I remember it now? No. So was it a waste of time? Maybe. Was it useful? Definitely not.
Oh, poor you. Oh my god.
And the last point that I really want to talk about, like maybe some fun facts about school life in Singapore, is that we have something called morning assembly.
Okay.
Do you guys have it too?
No.
Okay.
Never had that.
So for morning assembly, so for example, we start school at like 7:30, right? So everyone has to line up with their classes at 7:30, and then we would actually sing the national anthem and say the national pledge every single day, every single morning.
Because of German's somewhat conflicted history, let's call it like that, we are not singing a national anthem. There's barely any, as I would call it, indoctrination to develop some sort of national pride at school.
Mm-hmm. But I loved it, like saying the national pledge every morning. I think it's just really nice. And then we have the flag raising ceremony. So the head prefect will be up in front, reciting the pledge on behalf of everyone. And then there was the flag raising ceremony. It was pretty cute. Thinking back about it, I think it's really nice. It kind of built this like sense of national pride.
It also gives a sense of community, which is very important for such a small state as Singapore or any. Actually, for any community, it's very important to build a sense of community. This basically concludes our video. I hope you've learned a little bit about the difference of the school systems and also about what the school systems have in common.
If you like this type of video comparing the differences between the life in Singapore and Germany, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Hit on the subscribe button down below if you have not already done so. And we'll be putting out more of these kind of videos comparing the two countries. And we'll see you in our next video.
Bye.
Bye.